Okay, you guys, today on Boss Bitch Radio, I'm very excited. We have a special guest, but today's focus is going to be talking about why your body is not changing. And when you meet the guest today, you will realize why this is in line with her story. She came from a very cardio queen background to weightlifting muscle mommy now. So we're going to dive into her story. I can't wait to share all about Miss Erica Wyrick. She's also a coach on my team. She started as a client and we brought her on board. She's working in the studio as a personal trainer and also working with nutrition clients. So I'm stoked to have her on the show today. So welcome, Miss Erica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I know. I'm very, very excited to have you today. I think everybody's going to absolutely love you. You're just a gem and everybody loves you at the studio. So I know this is going to be a super fun episode. Now, you have been training with us for almost 3 years. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, I do. And I've loved every minute of it, every day.
Yes, you started back in May of 2021. So we're coming up to, depending on when people are listening to this, we're coming up to 2024 now. So almost 3 years. And you have had 372 personal training visits at Venus, which
Wow.
is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Holy,
lot of hours,
yeah.
372 hours of weight training. So that's amazing. And you started diet coaching with me in June of 2021. And that's
Yes.
when you came on board and you wanted to compete. And so we started that whole strategy. And according to my records, it looks like we did our first show together. Was it June or July of 2022?
It was actually November of 2021. I
Okay.
didn't I didn't have a lot of muscle, but we
Yes.
just leaned me out and my body did morph quite a bit from when I started in May till November. But
Okay.
it was just kind of thought it was going to be one and done. And here I am 5 shows later. Can't wait for
Amazing.
next season.
I
So
love it. You're an NPC Bikini competitor. So let's get to know a little bit more about your story. I think it's super useful when people land on the podcast and they can hear about stories that are similar to theirs, right? Women who maybe are in the same spot in their life, same age, and things of that nature. So tell us a little bit about your age, if you want to share your occupation, a little bit of your background with fitness and exercise. And then obviously you're a muscle mommy. So you also have children too. So you can feel free to
yes.
share some info about that as well.
Okay. Just a little bit of history about me. I actually tried every sport known to man and I failed at everything. I was terrible. And so actually it was just like junior high trials, volleyball, cheerleading, basketball. I hated all of it. And so I decided to go out and run for the track team, and I never lost a race. So I thought, this is my sport. This is what I'm going to do. So I did it all 4 years in high school, cross country and track. I did all 4 years in college at Stan State, cross country and track. And then when I was done and had babies, I have two daughters, and then I have two stepdaughters and a stepson. So I've been raising 5 babies since they were 4 and 6, my stepchildren. And then my girls, I thought, well, I still need something for myself. So I started competing in half marathons. I did one full marathon. I've done a total of 20 half marathons. And running was just like my outlet. It was a break from me being a mom, break from me being a wife, more something that I was doing for myself. And I loved it because it was something that I was successful at. I won a lot. I won nationals. I've just succeeded in that realm. And so it was kind of like the thing that I just did. I was known as a runner and I did a lot of local races and races out of town. And my kids would come support me, which was fun, and my husband. And I just loved all of it. And I actually got injured in a ski accident and couldn't run for 12 weeks because I had broken some ribs and lacerated my liver. And my doctor said, no running. You can weight train, but no running. Well, my
Oh,
girlfriend,
interesting.
yeah,
Why did he
my,
say no running? Is it just because of the impact?
yes, he
Okay.
said that the impact on my liver, that laceration I had was a couple inches long and like a half inch deep. And he just really didn't want anything to make that worse. And so, and then a couple broken ribs, it's just painful. So the only thing I could do was weight train. Enter Venus Fitness Studio. My girlfriend had been trying to get me to do a fitness competition for like 2 years because she knew that I loved to work out, but it was more of just I love to run. I didn't really ever train in weights. And so she had invited me to come along and talked about you so much that I wanted to work with you. I had no desire to do a competition, but to work with you, I kind of had to decide to do that very quickly. And I think it was like within a month I had decided, okay, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger and do a show and see what happens. And honestly, after that first day, I thought the women in my category at the time I was competing, I was 47 or 46, turning 47. And now I just turned 49. And the women were so encouraging and so supportive. And these are my competition. I mean, we're going to be on stage in the next 20 minutes together. And they were just like, we did this. We got here. Do you know how few people will ever have the discipline to do something like this? So be proud of yourself. Get out on that stage and shine. And I wish I remembered the gal's name. She just turned pro. She's a very tall, thin redhead. She was like my favorite person backstage because she made me feel so empowered when I wasn't with my teammates or wasn't with you. It was just some random stranger that made me feel so successful that I was just stepping on stage. So even though she was my competition, when I got on stage, it was like, oh, wow, this feels so good to know that I did this. I did something for myself apart from running, apart from being a wife. I work. My husband owns a solar company, so I help him with that. I'm also a licensed insurance agent, so I work for State Farm. So I wear a lot of hats, but this was something that was just for Erica. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the journey and the process. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing more shows. And my kids are so supportive too, which is what I love. You know, they're proud of me. And I
They
feel like
even
I'm
come into
setting
the
a
studio too, right?
yes, I have two
Yeah.
daughters that have come in, one that comes in quite regularly. And it's just fun. You know, it's just, I really enjoy it. And yeah, so now turned nutrition coach, turned trainer. I am so happy at Venus. I just love the whole vibe there. And because I was once on the receiving end of it, I know what it's like to now
Yeah.
be supporting other women on that same journey, whether they do a show or it's just part of the lifestyle process.
hmm Now, I know you have mentioned before that you went to college and you have a degree in kinesiology, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you were in college or any of the times that you were in athletics, was weight training ever something that you did consistently or ever dabbled in, or was Venus like your real first exposure to actual like resistance training?
In college, we never lifted weights, which is kind of weird looking back, especially with that being my degree. You feel like they would have made it more of a like a companionship with weight training and sprint drills and long distance training when it's cross country season. We never did anything like that. Like I don't even know if I ever went into the weight room in college, and definitely not in high school. It was just strictly running. And so after kids, a few times I belonged to In Shape and I went with a girlfriend and we dabble in weights, but I'm talking like 10 to 15 pound dumbbells, 15 reps, 3 sets overhead press. Now I can do overhead press 35 pounds. It just to see even my own journey because I didn't really know what I was doing. And it was
Yeah.
just her and I kind of a chance to get out of the house. We do incline walk or we'd go for a run and kind of dabble in weights. But I was so insecure in the gym. I didn't know really what to do. Definitely didn't do lower body workouts because I thought, oh, I'm already doing that with my running. So I don't need to do that. Just focused on upper body. And really, it was like biceps, triceps, shoulders. And it maybe was a few months here or there spread over 2 decades. I mean, it was like nothing. So when I went to Venus, it was definitely an eye opener of it's okay to lift heavy crap. It's okay. You're not going to get big and bulky and look like a man, which
hmm
is such a misconception. And then to have that feeling of being empowered, of knowing that, when I first started hip thrust, and they were just the 45-pound bar with maybe a little bit of weight on the side to now being able to do 320 for 15 reps. It's just so empowering. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I love that.
Venus was really my exposure to the weight training world.
Hmm. And just, I like to give people a reference who aren't very aware of the impact of like weight training and changing the shape of your body and really creating that like tone that like women are after. So when you get on stage, you're 5'3", 5'3",
5'4", 5'4".
5'4". You get on stage about like 119 to 20-ish pounds,
Yep.
and you lift 320 pounds for a hip thrust, right? Like this is something that you do leading up to a show. Obviously, like as you get closer, you're tired and your energy stores are a little bit less and you're not lifting as heavy. But leading up to a show, you are like leg pressing. I don't even know how much, probably what, 6 plates on each side. Like it's quite a bit. You know your numbers
Yeah.
because you track your weights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do track, and I do heavy leg press. I want to say 600 is what I leg press.
Yeah.
360 is my top with hip thrust. And I'm not talking 1 rep max. I'm talking, a good 10 reps.
Hmm.
It's so funny how it's like more than double my weight, and you wouldn't think that you're capable of something like that, but you are. And I don't feel like I look like a man or I'm manly. And right now I'm sitting about 136, so I'm 16-ish pounds above stage weight. This is about, my comfort zone. In the off season, to be able to build more muscle and have enough calories where I'm well fed, definitely to be able to make some changes to my physique for the
Right.
next time, I get on stage.
Which I think is a really great thing for us to kind of move into is because you came from a very cardio based fitness background, right? Everything was sprinting and cardio and things of that nature. And then you moved to weight training. And I think a lot of times women are still stuck on the, oh, I can't eat too much, or like, oh my gosh, my coach tried to give me 1,700 calories. That's too much. I can't do that. I'm going to gain weight. And you just took to that really, really well. Like you didn't fight with me. I have clients that will argue and like, I can't do that. And I'm like, just trust the process, because something that a lot of people forget, or maybe they aren't aware of, is that the muscle has to grow from something, right? Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
we can, lose fat and do all those things. But if you want to change your body, and why a lot of people's bodies don't change is because they're either always in a deficit, constantly running, doing tons of cardio, sub 1,000 calories or something like that, or they just go off the deep end because they can't maintain that. And then they're just eating everything in sight. And then they're just doing cardio because they think that's the answer to not
Yeah.
gain weight, right?
Right.
So, what was the biggest change, or what were the biggest changes that you noticed in your physique from your running background and history when you started shifting into prioritizing weight training? Because I know when you and I started coaching, you were like, well, can I keep running in? And I don't think we kept it in for very long. Uh,
Not very long.
yeah, because as a coach, just so people are aware of like, well, why can't she run? We were trying to build, we were trying to create shape. And if we were going to be running on top of the weight training, one was going to take a priority, and it was going to tire out your legs. You wouldn't be able to lift as heavy. We would be spinning our wheels essentially to try to get you the physique that we needed to create that goddess body, right? That whole
Right.
physique on stage. So what were the biggest changes from your cardio lifestyle to now like prioritizing weight training and like sprinkling in now some runs and things like that occasionally?
Okay. Lots of changes for sure. Definitely in my physique, but my mindset, my calorie intake, just the way I deal with food. When I first started at Venus, I was running 26 miles a week, and I
Oh
always
my
took
God.
off I
I
always took off
forgot that.
Sundays.
I forgot that.
Yes, I was definitely a runner. And so there were times, to be honest, when I was training for half marathons, that my running partner and I would get up at 4:10 and be on the road by 4:30 and run a 12 miler before we would go to our workplaces of employment on a Monday. It was like, hey, we got in at 12 on Monday, and then we'd have the rest of the week to dabble in just 3 and 4 miles, because we wanted to stay constantly in the ready zone for if a half marathon came up that we decided to jump into, we'd always be ready. And so when I started with you, instantly you were like, okay, the max you can run is 12 miles a week. And I think that was kind of the hook, right? Like, okay, I still get to run a little bit. And within a month, I think you stripped it all away. So
Sorry,
you
not
didn't take exactly. I'm not sorry you did that though, because at the time, while I felt like I was a thin person, it was this constant cycle of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, running every day, eating fairly what I thought was healthy, a lot of salads, really low carb. And then on weekends, it was a shit show. I mean, I would just eat whatever I wanted. And then Monday, it was like, oh, I'm up a couple pounds. Okay, we got to run it off. And it was just this vicious cycle of never, using food to fuel my body. It was never a concept that I even knew about. I wish I had known that in college.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like, I run so I can eat those things. I run so I can drink that drink. And Venus really taught me a lot more than just weight training. It taught me how to add in a healthy allotment of carbs, but also a healthy allotment of calories, because I didn't track my calories back then when I was just running, but I would guess during the week I was probably 1,000 or 1,200 calories at best. And then on weekends, carbs galore, alcohol if I felt it, I mean, whatever. And so I'm sure I was upwards of 2,000 plus calories on the weekend, 1,000, so no wonder my body wasn't changing. And then I'm running, which on several of your podcasts, you have mentioned about running and what it does to your bottom side and how it basically makes it look like a melted candle.
I have said that
I
a time or
used
20.
Yes. And it's so funny because in the beginning, I was like, oh gosh, I kind of like my butt. Oh my gosh. I look back on pictures now from 2.5 years ago, and my husband kind of chuckles because he's like, remember how you used to think your butt was so cute? Now it is really cute.
Yeah.
I just at the time I didn't know, so I didn't know. And
Right.
man, the physique change I've had of having more of in the improvement season, a really bubbly butt, that's sitting up a lot perkier than it was when I was running. The strength that I feel, the calories right now, training days, I'm close to 2,000, roughly 2,000 calories. Non-training days, which is really only a day or two a week, I'm still around 1,800 calories. I'm having carbs with pretty much every meal. It's more balanced. And then I don't get that 3 o'clock blood glucose drop,
Yeah.
where before I was feeding myself caffeine every day at 3 o'clock, because there comes the slump after a big lunch meal. I was overeating lunch and dinner, never ate breakfast. So Venus has really taught me quite a lot. About this whole journey has taught me quite a lot. And that's my degree.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing that, graduated from San State in 97 with a bachelor's in kinesiology and a minor in health and fitness. And it's like, they really didn't teach us that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's definitely evolved over time. And I think a lot of the education back then was not as advanced clearly as it is now with like fitness, and our specialty is clearly bodybuilding, so it is definitely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'll be interesting for people to see. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or one of the podcast players, you should definitely check out YouTube. We'll make sure to insert a before and after of your photos in the YouTube here so people can see your transformation. Because what's also very interesting but eye-opening for a lot of women is that your before photo and your after or current photo, the difference in the scale, because we know that that's what women fixate on a lot, most women, isn't much. And I think in fact, you weigh a little bit more now than when you
I
started,
do.
right?
I do. Yep.
But your body is completely different, right? The body is very, very different. And so that's a perfect example, because I often ask women, if I was going to show you these two photos and not tell you what the woman weighed, which one would you choose based off of just visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, they will choose the more sculpted, curved, like lean, but athletic looking physique. And then if I tell them that you're what, 5, 6, 7 pounds heavier in that photo, does it really matter? Right?
Right.
Does it really matter?
And actually, that's actually, I believe, if I can recall correctly, I weighed 132 when I started at Venus. And right now I'm July, August, September, 4 months post show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 4 months post show, and I weigh 136. So 136 now, 2.5 years later, 132 when I started. My physique looks way better. I have more energy. My calories have doubled. My protein intake, and this is just like a little side note. I do want to mention about just your weight training and with protein intake is just do it. Even if you don't know what you're doing, find a Venus Fitness studio near you. If you are not in our area, something similar to that where they can really help you understand nutrition. We do the online nutrition coaching, of course, but how to really sculpt the muscles and lift heavy, because I'm caring for my mom right now, and she doesn't even have enough muscle strength to get herself dressed. And
Mm-hmm.
so while I have fallen in love with this process and the journey the last couple years, more so now the last year, how important it is for women to have muscle, because naturally we're going to lose it as we age. So if you're not doing anything to help offset that by either weight training and having the proper amount of protein, and something tragic happens, you're not going to have that muscle strength to carry you through. And I'm witnessing that now. And so just like as a little side note, don't be afraid to lift heavy and just get out there and make some changes. The byproduct is going to be your physique for sure, and your mental state, and all sorts of things that your sex drive. I mean, we don't have a problem in that department, but it's definitely helped, you know. It's just there's so many benefits to doing that, and the confidence, and it's not even confidence in how you look, it's confidence of like, I just lifted that weight. That was pretty, I'm so happy with myself, you know. So that's just my little side rant about just doing it to care for yourself and for your future, and be an example if you're a mom to your children of, you're never too old to start something new. My kids always knew me as a runner, and now they're like, my mom's a bikini competitor.
I love that. Yeah. And it's also amazing to, just to kind of look back on your journey and point out to people that you actually did this as you aged, right? Like you did this and you're almost, you're 50s next year, 50s right around the corner. And
Yep.
you didn't start weight training until you were 47 and have made pretty impressive and dramatic improvements with your body just by adding in weight training. So just for those out there that are like, I'm 40, that'll never happen. I'm 45, that'll never happen. I'm 50. Tina Insta Awesome is another,
Yes.
client of ours that's a prime example of like not starting until she was in her 50s, you know. So so I love that, and it's awesome to see, and I love when we have women come in that are just like, wow, this is a game changer. So one thing that I know we come up against when women start weight training is it's not as instant gratification at the process isn't as much instant gratification as like cardio, right? Like when you
Right.
go run, right, you can look at your watch and see you burned 600 calories or whatever doing a 12-mile run. And then you go weight train for an hour and it's like 350 or 400 or something like that. And they are so hell bent on like it's not as good of a workout, as good as a air quotes as my cardio because I burn more calories with cardio. And so it's like part of my mission with the podcast is like educating women, screaming it from the microphone that it's a long game and you have to be patient. And yes, it does burn more calories than cardio technically at rest because you have more muscle on your body. And to keep that muscle is expensive, right? So your body wants to preserve that. And, by doing that, it's the whole weightlifting journey. It's taking that time. So when you first started, were there ever times when you were like discouraged, like, oh, I don't know if this is working, maybe I should just go back to running? Because I'm sure that comes up for a lot of women when they make the leap from cardio queen to muscle mommy.
Yeah. Actually, in the beginning, I think because I was so new at lifting weights, my body just started morphing really fast. So I remember specifically, it was like 2 months into it. So the weather was still good because I started in May and it was July. And we had some friends over, and I was in leggings and a tank top. And we were sitting in our backyard and we were having some wine with them. And just the way I was standing, the wife and her husband were both like, your thigh muscles, just the outside of your thighs, your body looks totally different. And I remember it had only been 2 months. And so I was like, wow, people are already noticing, but I had never done it. So because it was such a dramatic shift for me from running and just stripping my body down. And honestly, I was tired all the time. I felt fatigued all the time. I just thought that's what you did to kind of keep yourself in check. And then when I started this and I started having people notice, then that made me feel more excited. Probably the harder part is as far as getting discouraged, even though I haven't felt like I've been discouraged on this journey at all. Where I can see people can get discouraged, though, is when you go from being stage lean, which is not reality all the time, to then when you go into your improvement season and you're adding on that 14, 15 pounds back on because you do need to build muscle so you can continue to grow, so you can improve your physique for the next show. That part can get discouraging because you can't see it anymore because you're not lean enough anymore. So it's under there, but you're just not seeing it visually like you can when you're lean enough to see it. And so that's probably the most discouraging. But when I compare my November of 21 stage photos to June, July photos of 21 to, or of 22 to June and July photos of 23, those 5 different stage shots, every show you can see I've added on more and more muscle.
Yes.
So it does take time. And so, yes, please don't get discouraged because I've been at this now for 2.5 years. And it's so funny because somebody in the studio this morning said, well, I just don't want to get bulky. I'm like, I'm trying to get these shoulders to grow. It
Right.
just takes a really long time. And so you're not going to get bulky, lift the heavy weights, and just know that it is a long game. And don't get discouraged if you see, like you said, women get fixated on the scale. Don't get discouraged if you see that that's not changing in the way that you want. Compare your photos.
Yeah.
And that's what we do with like in the nutrition coaching, because we have an eye for it now. We can compare the clients, photos from a week ago even to this week and see a difference that maybe they can't see. And they're just thinking, oh, I only lost 1 pound. Well, okay, 1 pound is still great. But look at the difference in your stomach not being distended. Look at your, sides maybe not being or looking, a little bit more tight this week. So there's more than just the scale to show progress.
Most definitely. And, measurements are also another great one. But to your point with competing, because I know that's like a whole nother beast, right? When people decide to take on that journey, when you see yourself stage lean and you see like this crazy definition and your abs and like all the lines and everything popping, it's really super cool. But I think it's also important that people know that, like you mentioned, it's not realistic.
Right.
And you are kind of intentionally starving yourself a little bit, not really. I mean, you're eating. I mean, I think the lowest your calories got for a short stretch of time or maybe in the thousands. We got probably what you were eating before when you were running,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so not realistic and not a fun place to be in because you're hungry and you're tired. And that's an entirely different podcast conversation. But when you put back body fat on, which is necessary
Yes.
to come out of that stage of stage lean, even when you put body fat back on, your body still does not look like it did when you started, right? The shape, because the
Right.
muscle that you built, just the body fat, when you put it back on, lays differently on your body.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say that because last week I did a post on Instagram about, I was 18 weeks post show. I weigh 134 and I look I will take that 134, that photo from last week compared to the photo from 2.5 years ago when I weighed 132 and I was starving myself and running 26 miles a week and tired all the time
Yeah.
and had dips in my energy level and never ate breakfast. And now breakfast is my favorite and my biggest meal of the day.
Yeah. Since you brought up breakfast, when it comes to the nutrition piece of things when you were running versus now, I know you said you did like a lot of salads and things like that. What do you think was the biggest change in your diet versus what you were doing prior? So now versus then in terms of
Okay.
your macros, right? So the content of what your food was.
Okay, well, I never ate breakfast because it actually used to upset my stomach. And I don't know if it was because like I would go for a run and I'd have my coffee. And if I'd eat something, I just didn't really like to eat breakfast. So I would get, 300 calorie Starbucks,
Mhm.
full sugar, fat filled, whatever. And then I would have a salad for lunch. Or if I had a sandwich for lunch, and I'm not talking like a homemade sandwich. I'm talking like the O'Brien sandwiches that are just enough for two people, but I would eat it all. And I justify, oh, I'm a big eater. It's okay. But then that was my first meal of the day. I'd be so full. I'd feel sluggish. My stomach hurt because I overate. Then I would do the same thing with dinner. And now breakfast is my favorite. Like as soon as I'm done training, because I prefer AM workouts, as soon as I'm done training, within 30 minutes, I've got my breakfast, I've got my egg whites, my spinach, I usually do oatmeal converted with some other ingredients converted into waffles unless I'm in prep. And breakfast is my favorite meal. It's my biggest meal. It's usually about 500 calories just for my breakfast. And then I spread the rest of my calories throughout the rest of the day. And I eat before I go work out now too, which is a whole new concept. But yeah, from back then, it was like skip breakfast. My first meal would be noon. So unintentionally, I guess I did, now that the term is out there called intermittent fasting. I guess
Mhm.
that's what I did without realizing it before. Now I would say eat your breakfast. It just fuels you and you start your day feeling so good.
Yeah. No, it really does. I think we get into this cycle of the weekends are just kind of a shit show for some people, and like you and I are guilty of that. We're not angels. We
Yeah.
have had our moments, and trust me, I get it, right? Like we get it. But I think with a lot of the diet culture and a lot of what tends to happen is there's this crazy influx of food on the weekends, and then, well, I'm just not going to eat Monday until lunchtime because I had a lot of food over the weekend and I want to fast and do this. And then it kind of just starts this unhealthy pattern of, depriving yourself because you were bad. And these are
Yes.
very typical eating behaviors that we see with women that come into the programs that we offer. And I think when you learn that your food doesn't always have to be like extreme either direction, right? Because like competing is extreme, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
you understand how that works, and and then the other side of that is just going off the rails and going crazy with your food and then just trying to fix it during the week. And when you settle into like where you're at now, which is your off season, you got over your post show, like treats and all the little things, and they're like out of your system, so to speak. And you know when you can have things and when you want things, and you're much more in tune with your hunger. It's a really great place to be. But starving yourself and fasting
Oh,
for fat loss is just such a bad perpetual cycle that I see women get themselves into.
and honestly, it doesn't even work. I remember we would, old me, before we'd go on a vacation, let's say we're going on a week trip to an all inclusive, I would literally starve myself the week before. So day one of the trip, I would like thin to my liking. And then as the week progressed, I would be so bloated because I ate a lot because now I'm on vacation. But it's like I would starve myself the week before and run a ton just to be looking what I thought was good for one day. And then it just
Yeah.
all goes out the window, where now it's like, oh my gosh, even on Thanksgiving, before Thanksgiving last week, I had 4 meals before the Thanksgiving meal. And Old Erica would have never done that. She would have just probably had a coffee for breakfast and saved all the calories for dinner at 4 p.m. And it's just not the way to do it.
Not the way, not at all.
No, no.
Now, your obviously your lifestyle has changed dramatically from your marathon and cardio days to now. Has that impacted any of your like direct relationships, like your husband? I know you've had daughters at home and things like that. Has that affected your family in any way? And how did they feel about their mom like getting on stage and doing that? Because I know a lot of times when people want to start a program, whether it's a lifestyle transformation program or they want to compete, I always tell them they need to talk to their people at home, right? Their
Yeah.
immediate support system, make sure that is something everybody knows, not necessarily because you need permission, but because you're going to be changing some things, right? And so the
Right.
way that you interact with your family and your friends and things, your social circle tends to change. I know there was a little bit of a challenge for you at first because you were like
Yeah.
bringing your food places and prep and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear how that journey went for you.
Okay. Well, first of all, my husband and my kids have been supportive since day one. So I think that as I saw changes and as they saw changes, they saw that that worked. So they lived with me and they saw all the effort I was putting in, but I was getting results. And so they were always supportive and I never had an issue. Where I had an issue was some of our friends and even some of our closest friends, they didn't understand, why can't you eat the damn cookie? I don't want the cookie, or I'm in prep, or it didn't matter. They just wanted me to have what they were having. And I finally had to get tough skin and say, why does it bother you so much that I'm not eating what you're eating? Or why does it bother you so much that I'm not drinking? So, because that was our relationship before. We'd eat together, we'd drink together, play games, whatnot. And so it was just, that was kind of the dynamics. And I was changing the dynamics. So as far as friends go, I actually got a little bit of flack in the beginning until I'd say until I probably did my first show. And then it came with they had a lot of pride in that I was able to do something like that. And now that I've continued, they know this is just what I'm doing. And I don't get that anymore from them. I'm in various across the board. But as far as my husband and my kids, they just were on board from day one. And it's so funny because my daughter, who has a baking business out of the house, when she's baking, if I even go like to lick, like, I just want to sample the frosting, she's like, get out of there. You're in prep, or get out of there just because you can. When you're in improvement season, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And because I've said that so many times, she now says that to me as like a counter action to my behavior if sometimes I start to get a little squirrely. But yeah, my husband and my kids have been supportive and that helps. That really does help. But it did, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to need you guys to be on board because this is probably going to get hard and a little dicey, especially as it gets closer to the show. And if I don't have you guys supporting me, it's going to make it that much harder. It's already going to be a hard process. So I need your support. And my husband, bless his heart, it's been 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, I still got to get in steps because maybe my day just took a left turn and I didn't get done the things that I needed to get done. He's like, let's go right now. Let's bundle up and go for a walk. So I'm very blessed to have my husband and my kids support for sure.
Yeah. And I know that even in your journey, obviously I've met your husband many times and I've seen he's actually had his own little transformation too, which is not the first
He
husband
did.
in the Venus, community or partner that has had, accidental transformation of their own.
Yes, he did. I want to say since last December, he had lost about 16 pounds.
Wow.
And I had done this now repeatedly. He kind of saw the cycle and it just got to the point where he's like, you know what? Okay, I want to start eating like you eat. And now, even when I have other things in the house, he still goes for his little rice bowl of he'll put in potatoes, rice, his chicken, maybe ground beef. He mixes it all together. And then he's like, okay, I got my lunch packs for tomorrow. When I started 2.5 years ago, he was the Carl's Jr. king. He would get a double Western bacon cheeseburger all the time. That was
Wow,
like
I
his
didn't know
jam.
that. I did not
Mm-hmm.
know that.
Yep. And now I don't even know the last time he had fast food.
Yeah. I love that. I think I mean, I think that's great, and that's not always, unfortunately, the situation for a lot of people. They get a lot of resistance
Yeah.
from people in the home. But when you have that support system and everybody is on board, and they don't necessarily need to be as, strict or dialed in once you're in like a prep situation, but it's just such a nice it's just nice to have that support system. You're going through it together.
Yep.
You are eating healthy together. You're improving your life together. And as a
Right.
byproduct, your body's changing, which a lot of people enjoy that piece of it. And it's been really cool to see that he supports you. When you'd be sending in some videos for me to just check your training form and things like that. In the past, I see him in there in the gym with you,
Hmm.
spotting you and all that. So kudos to Eddie. we love we
he
love a good support husband for
Yes,
sure.
he's definitely supportive. And even like back to my kids, like we've had birthdays where I just can't partake in the cake and my kids know, mom's just not having any. And it's so funny because now being 4 months out from the show, my daughter and I went to it's called what's it called? Palo Santo Cafe. It's
Hmm.
in Riverbank. And we went there and we got a little coffee and a little treat, and she's like, can you have this right now? I'm like, yeah, I sure can. And she's like, oh, okay. But she asks now because she knows if mom's in prep, I'm not going to indulge in things like that. And if I'm not in prep, I'm still not going to go crazy and indulge. But yeah, we can split something a little bit more on the naughty side and I'll get something a little bit on the healthier side. And it's just so cute. She's 21 and she's like, you can have that. Oh yay, okay, let's share that. I think we shared a cookie and we didn't even eat the whole cookie between the two of us.
Yeah.
So it was just nice to just have a little nibble or two. But then there's been times my family loves when I make twice baked potatoes, which are
Mm.
not healthy at all because it's sour cream, mayonnaise, and cheese. And I'll just do red potatoes on the side. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, mom's having a steak and asparagus with us, and tonight's a great day. And it doesn't bother them if I don't partake in exactly what they're having. So,
Yeah. You've just made some adjustments and figured it out,
right.
which I think is great because a lot of times when women start, they're like, my family or my husband, they're not going to eat what I'm eating, and I don't want to have to be cooking all these different meals. And I'm like, you really don't have to. Like,
Right.
you can adjust some things and make it pretty simple. It doesn't have to be this whole like overhaul of everybody and trying to force everybody onto your way of eating. So I think that's great that your family is understanding of that.
Yeah. And you know what? Another thing about that, about making changes, when I started in 21, I made every single night dinner for my husband and my kids separate than what I was prepping for myself for that very first show because I didn't want them to have to sacrifice because I felt like they were already having to sacrifice this new version of me. And then after that first show, I go back into my improvement season. Um, I'm eating a little bit more similar things, but I still kept it kind of like the same foods, just more of it. And they started then slowly adapting. And now I don't know the last time I made a pot of spaghetti, but they don't really care because we've just made other alternatives. Like I at one point I put in my homemade lasagna recipe and a square this big is like 700 calories. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, I'm never going to eat lasagna again. Well, we figured out how to make homemade pasta with semolina flour, and it's so much better for you. And that's what they use in Italy, which is why they don't have the bloat factor over there. And we made homemade healthy chicken spinach lasagna with that semolina,
Mm.
and it was like super healthy and super delicious with butternut squash homemade like a marinara. And my kids were like, this is amazing, and it was super healthy. But so we just kind of switched over time. I didn't do that to them all at once. Like I said, I would cook them their own meals, but over time we just swapped out different dinner options and they're totally on board for it. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. So good. This is a jam-packed episode of just all the things myth busting. I feel like,
Yes.
from cardio to diet to all of it was super great. Now, what is on the horizon for you as far as any new goals, competing, and things like that? What is on your radar?
Okay, so I would like to have a long improvement season. Usually I'm back on the stage the following summer, but instead of getting on stage in the summer, my husband and I are going on a really nice trip for his 55th and my 50th next April. We're going to Italy and
Ooh.
France and Spain and Amsterdam and Paris. And so it's a 17-day trip. So we're super excited for that. Well, I'm not going to be in prep for that for sure.
Absolutely not.
So I'm going to enjoy that trip, come home, probably roll right into prep. At least this is the penciled in plan. And then I would love, ideally, to compete November as a 49-year-old and 3 weeks later compete as a 50-year-old in December. I think that would be so cool. But we'll just see. We'll see how things are looking in my improvement season. If I need a little bit more time, the coach's feedback from you and the judges is to grow my shoulders. So I need to do that and then get lean enough so the backside's a little bit more presentable. So just that's going to be the goal, working over the next year, really, and then just see what happens if I'm able to hit the stage November, December. But I really hope to, because I think that'd be kind of fun to do it 1 month as a 49-year-old and then the next month as a 50-year-old and compete in a little different category. So we'll see.
I think that'll be awesome. Well, I am
Yep.
super proud of you as your coach and also
Thank you.
as your boss, which is weird because I'm not your boss, but I'm your boss, but that's weird. But I'm super proud of you. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why we brought you on the team was your story, your experience, obviously all of the amazing changes that you made in your life. It's super relatable. And I think it's great for women to have a coach who has been through the journey and the process themselves. So super stoked to see what happens next year with competing. And obviously your amazing vacation is going to be wonderful. And then you'll be right into prep. So we'll have a
That's
really good
right.
time just grinding it out. But you're such a dedicated athlete. You take orders, you know, you're like, yes, ma'am, you just do. And it's been remarkable. It's been great working with you.
Oh,
So I'm happy to have
thank
you on
you.
the team. Any last parting words for anybody that's out there listening who might be worried that they're going to go from cardio queen to bulky bulkiness? Any last mic drop parting words for the audience here?
Well, I don't know if it's mic drop worthy, but I would say just, start with the weight training and maybe even if you just substitute a day or two a week from your cardio, if you're a cardio queen, it's just so important to have that muscle just as a foundation. And so as great as it is to have that sweat factor, right? So you do cardio and you're sweating and you feel like, oh, that was such a great workout. It just in the long run, it's just there's so many problems with it. And my running partner and I have ran together for over a decade, and now we run 1 day a week, 20 minutes, because that's all I'm allotted. And I love every minute that I get to run with her. And that was a big change for our relationship. Her and I are used to seeing each other 5-6 days a week running and then hanging out together with our spouses and having our shenanigans. And a lot of that, they had a baby. I started bodybuilding. So a lot of the dynamics there has changed. But she's still running her 24, 26 miles a week, and she's got some hip issues. And, I just worry a little bit for her in the long game. And so kind of everybody out there listening, I just would say in the long run, your joints, could be affected by over cardioing, just a lot of things and not building that muscle. And so if you could just really dedicate a few days a week, even just to, swapping out your cardio for some weight training, I think in the long run, you'll be very thankful that you did.
Well, you heard it here, folks. And Miss Erica said it best herself. So we are opening up another round of the Goddess Body Project, which is our 12-week transformation journey. And much like what you've gone through, this is how we take women through the experience, right? Everything either online or in studio. We work together online for all of your nutrition stuff and, giving you your training programs and everything. And you just had the luxury of being obviously in town to be able to work out at Venus. But our programs are for anyone around the world, right? We put people on stage
Yep.
when we've never even met them before. So Goddess Body Project starts January 15th. Super stoked about that. We're already opening enrollment now, taking applications. We want to get on the phone with people to make sure they're a good fit. Because much like Erica, not everybody is a good fit for the program. We got to make sure that their head is in the right space and they
Yes.
know that this is a nice little journey and we will hold their hand through it as best as we can. But make sure to check out the show notes, or if you're watching over on YouTube, the description box for the links to the program. Erica's a lovely coach on staff. So if you want to work with her, Just make sure to note that when you submit your interest. And if anybody wants to find you over on Instagram and follow your journey, share your info with them here.
Okay, so on Instagram, it's Wyrick, Wyrick, Erica, Erica. I do a lot of my stories, I'll do some food and some family fun things. And then if you scroll through my posts, I have different transformation photos, different meals, a lot of family stuff. I post a lot about my kids and my husband. But yeah, that's where you can find me on the gram. On Facebook, I think it's just Erica Green, which is my maiden name, and then my last name Wyrick, and that's Green, Greene, last name Wyrick, and that's where I'm at on Facebook.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to link that all up in the show notes as well, so people can come say hi. Let her know if you found this podcast inspiring, if she is one of the stories that started you on your journey with coaching with us or anyone in general. We love hearing those stories. I just love that women are inspired, and even if they're not working with us. So find Erica over on the internet, check out those links in the show notes, and we will see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.